This, friends, is the stuff that dreams are made of. Hey friends and family, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and if that clue wasn't a big enough clue to tell you what this video was going to be about, it's about the Maltese Falcon. If there's one movie, just one, that I've seen more than Casablanca, it's the Maltese Falcon. I love this film. Oh, I just can't get enough of this movie. The Maltese Falcon is one of the films that you can see it 100 times, just like Casablanca, and every time you see it, you catch something else, and you catch an innuendo, or you catch something that you didn't quite catch on to before. Now, one of the reasons that both of these films, I think, are so great is because they beat the censorship at their own game, right? Now, for those of you who, are not familiar with film of the era, up until 1934, there was no code, there was no standard of decency in film. And so the silent films and the early, very early talkies, they had some subject matters that were kind of risque for the time. I mean, they dealt with rape, they dealt with premarital sex, they dealt with children born out of wedlock, and then simultaneous to the story plots that were coming out of Hollywood, Hollywood itself, the cast of actors and actresses that were out there were also living scandalous lives that were making it into the tabloids. And at some point, the morals people decided we have to put a stop to this, and we have to put in some kind of standards so that, this kind of free-for-all in film stops, okay? So then a lot of the films become, on the surface, most of the films that, are cranked out are wholesome films. But every now and then you get a director or you get somebody with vision, who says, we can use clues to an audience who might be awake and aware of what we're implying. And, we can get away with the story plot. And if we don't get away with it, we can get away with it, suggesting off-color things. And if they don't catch on to it, that's fine too, because the storyline will still move, and no one will be the wiser that we have, these undercurrent, things that are indecent that are going on in the film. And apparently, the morals code, they had to see every film, beforehand, and they had to read the scripts and everything to agree to them and pass them. So when a script is, submitted to the moral people, if they don't catch innuendo, because sometimes innuendo is harder to catch when it's written down than when it's acted out. So if they don't catch the innuendo, then it gets put through. And both the Casablanca and both the Maltese Falcon are films that really, the writers were masters at allowing these off-color topics to get through. Now, the Maltese Falcon, just a little bit of movie trivia. Maltese Falcon, directed in 1941 by John Huston. This was the first film that John Huston ever directed. It was made in 1941. John Huston is the son of Walter Huston, who was an actor in the 30s. And I think he was in a few films. He was in a few of his son's films. This was the first film, since this was the first film that John Huston directed. It was the first cameo appearance that Walter Huston made in his son's film, but he had bigger roles in another film. Now, this cast of characters is a great cast of extremely talented actors. We have Humphrey Bogart again. We have Mary Astor, who is absolutely one of my absolute favorite actress of early film. She was poised, she was beautiful, she was dignified, she was petite, she was small, she was vulnerable. But unknown to many of us who are watching this film now, an audience in 1941 would have been very, very familiar with Mary Astor for all the things I said. Plus, she had been involved in a scandal herself in 1935, and it was a big scandal, and it made huge headlines. And of course, it focused, it centered on sex. She had an extramarital affair, and her husband, out of spite, stole her diary and was using it as blackmail because he discovered through her diary that she was having an affair with one of her directors. And in her diary, she was very explicit, and she said what they did, and that, he was like the best lover she's ever had and stuff like that. So it was like a huge scandal. So although Mary Astor, if you didn't know that scandal, you would see her in the way she presents herself in a very dignified way. You wouldn't ever see her as a femme fatale. But an audience in 1941 would have remembered this scandalous thing that happened. And I think they would have seen her as a very good choice for a scandalous woman in this film. And that is something I thought I needed to tell you, because if you were to watch it now, you might, that might be something that would be over your heads, because not because you're stupid, but just because you weren't living in 1941 and you wouldn't have known what was going on at that time. Now, let's get to the other cast of characters. Besides Mary Astor, we have Gladys George. She was in another film that I mentioned in another video. She was in The Best Years of Our Lives, and here she plays one of the characters. Peter Lorre, who was also in Casablanca. A woman named Lee Patrick, who had small parts in a lot of movies. I think she had been blacklisted, or her husband had been blacklisted, so she was only able to do small roles. Sydney Greenstreet, the great Sydney Greenstreet, who had been an English stage actor, and this was his first appearance on film, his very first movie he ever made, and I believe he won an Academy Award for it. And he made this film when he was like my age. He was in his 60s, so that's kind of impressive. Elisha Cook Jr., who is a character actor that we see in a lot of films. He's usually like a Weasley type. And as I mentioned, there's a cameo appearance by Walter Huston. The story was written by Dashiell Hammett. Now, at the very, very beginning of the film, before any acting occurs, we get this script of text, much in the same way as Star Wars presents the background story, right, of what's going on in their saga. And we learned that in 1539, the Knights Templar of Malta sent a precious gift to Charles V of Spain. However, pirates seized the galley, and no one to this day knows what ever became of the treasures on that ship. After that script ends, it cuts to modern-day San Francisco, where the story takes place, and we learn we're taken into the office of Spade and Archer, who are detectives, private detectives. And at the moment, only Spade is in the office. Archer is out doing whatever. And this woman, Mary Astor's character, at this stage, she presents herself as Miss Wonderly. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I've had a cold since October. It's been a terrible winter. So she shows up on the scene, and she says she needs his help, and she gives him a very elaborate story, which involves her sister, and that there's this man who's kind of like not kidnapped her sister, but her sister went with this man who she thinks is just manipulative, and she wants to get her sister out of the clutches of this guy named Thursby, and she needs Spade to help her track this guy down, because she needs to track this guy down. So while she's there, the partner, Archer, comes in, and Spade says, okay, well, we'll arrange for one of us to meet you this evening at the hotel. And then from there, we'll start the investigation. Archer is licking his chops because even though Spade is bunking his wife, he's not above that himself, and he sees, this beautiful woman, and he says, I'm going to take the case. I'll meet you at your hotel room. I'll meet you at the hotel. And she's like, she doesn't care which one. She's like, fine, that's great, So Archer is assigned to the case. Now, a couple hours pass. Bogart's awakened to a phone call from the cops, and the police say, your partner's been killed. Come down to the scene. So Spade goes to the location where the partner was killed, and it's outside. Now, we know, and Spade knows, that Archer was going to meet the woman, Miss Wonderly, at a hotel. So we know that they were going to meet in the lobby of a hotel. But the crime scene is in either an alleyway or someplace, out of the like hustle and bustle. It's like in an obscure little location outside. So Spade goes, he sees that his partner's dead. He doesn't ask to look at the body. He just tells the detectives, well, you've seen as much as I can see, there's nothing for me to see. And he takes off, and he takes a walk to clear his mind. Now, a few hours later, we learn that Thursby is also found dead. Okay, so Archer, Spade's partner, is found dead, and Thursby, the person that Archer and Spade are supposed to be hunting down for Miss Wonderly, is also found dead. So now he's like involved in this case. The cops are all over it, and he doesn't even know what's going on, to be honest. He just knows that his partner was killed, and now the person that they were supposed to hunt down is killed. So he doesn't know what to do. So he calls Miss Wonderly at the phone number and location that she told him she was in. So he calls, and of course, she's gone. She didn't stick around. So we understand from that she probably knows what happened. She probably heard about the murders. So we don't know why she took off, and he doesn't know why she took off. But we just know she took off. And at this stage, he doesn't have a clue what's happening. He has no idea. But and the police show up at Spade's apartment because they think he's the one who killed Thursby, because Thursby, they believe, is the one who killed Archer. So they think that Spade now is, killed Thursby, who killed his partner, Archer. So Spade's like, well, hold on a second, guys. I didn't kill anybody, So after they leave, he calls So after he realizes that the police assume that he killed Thursby, he gets a phone call from Miss Wonderly at his office. And she says, I need your help. Here's my new address. And the name it's not Wonderly, it's LeBlanc. So he goes to that new location where she is, and with the new name. And she explains to him that she heard that the two men were killed, and she's very afraid because, after all, Thursby was the person she had hired him to track down. And so if he's killed, she's afraid that she's in danger. Who knows why she thinks that, but she thinks she's in danger. So that's why she relocated and changed her name. So, he's like, what's your name? Just tell me what your real name is. And she says, well, actually, my real name is Bridget O'Shaughnessy. So here we learn her final and possibly her real name is Bridget O'Shaughnessy. So he goes to the location. They meet up. She wants his help. He takes a few $100s from her. He tells her, don't open the door for anybody. He takes the key. He said, don't open, I'll open the door and let myself back in. Don't open the door for anybody. So he takes her money because she's hired him, but he determines that he needs a lot more than the $200 she gave him originally. He said, I need a lot more than that. So he takes the better part of $500 from her. And he leaves her like that. Now, in the meanwhile, this character named Cairo also comes to Spade's office to hire him for help. And this is where the code this is how they play around the code. When Cairo is introduced to Spade by the secretary, she comes into his room and she says, there's a guy out there wanting to see you. And she says, gardenias. So his business card smells like gardenia, And then when she says, it smells like gardenias, there's like a little bit of the music. I don't know if the word octave is correct, but the music, there's a musical tone that ascends to make it sound light, So we get the understanding, if you read between the lines, that the guy is, he may be effeminate. So in comes Peter Lorre, very debonair, as well as debonair as Peter Lorre could ever be. But he's got like a perm. He's impeccably dressed. He's got a cane, like a walking stick that's very nice. And he's definitely dressed like a gentleman, And he knows all about Archer and Thursby's deaths, and he elaborates that there is an item that they are all in pursuit of, including Miss O'Shaughnessy. Now, as I mentioned, the subplot through the music and the suggestion of a gardenia Senate business card, we are to infer that Joel Cairo is gay. It's a small detail, but we later learn that the gay element features in the plot, which becomes evident later in the story. It is revealed that Spade is being tailed by a gunsil, which is another thing that the censors didn't catch. The word gunsil appears throughout Dashiell Hammett's story, and they put it in the movie, and if the censors caught it, they would take it out. If the censors didn't catch it, it would stay in. But anyone who was watching the film, particularly if they were Jewish or grew up in a Jewish neighborhood, anybody who knew the word gunsil knew that the word gunsil meant a homosexual. So that is like that was like a gift from the censors who didn't catch it, right? So when Spade returns to go to Miss O'Shaughnessy's apartment, he tells her that he met Cairo, and she became very nervous because she doesn't know what Cairo told him. And Spade tells her that he's been offered an awful lot more money from Cairo than she offered him. Hey, Cairo wants to give me $10,000 for this thing. What, you give me a couple hundred, So she gets all dramatic and she's like, what more can I do? I have nothing. I can't keep up with him. What do I need to get your trust and your loyalty? What can I give you in exchange? Like she's acting like she hasn't got a clue. So she sort of walks into that trap. And so nothing is said. He doesn't say, I want a piece of action, baby. He doesn't say anything like that. But there's just like, he grabs her and kisses her. And so we understand, I think it's safe to say that we understand that in exchange for the lack of money to give him, he wants a little bit of action, So I don't know. That's what I infer. I don't know if that's the case or not. However, we do know that they do become a sexual item and they do become lovers. But anyway, Spade arranges for the three of them, himself, Cairo, and O'Shaughnessy, to get together and meet together, all three of them, at his apartment. So he wants to know what they say to each other, because between the two of them, he'll get the whole story. So he keeps his mouth shut and he lets them do all the talking. Spade listens as O'Shaughnessy and Cairo reveal that they are in pursuit of something called the Maltese Falcon, which is what everyone is in pursuit of. We learned that the gunsil tailing Spade, there is a gunsil who's tailing Spade, who's like following him everywhere, could be tricked and manipulated by Cairo offering sexual favors. But she doesn't say it like that, but O'Shaughnessy says, well, that gunsil who's tailing, Spade, he's an obstacle, but you can get around him like you got around the other guy in Istanbul. And then he's like, oh, you mean the guy that you couldn't get to, and then they don't complete the sentence. So you just know that, like, she tried to use her sexual favors for this guy, and some random guy in Istanbul, but he was gay. So it didn't matter that she was offering her services. And where Cairo had an edge on the story was that he was able to sleep with the guy, So, so we get that little innuendo there. So now we know that both camps are open to sexual favors in pursuit of this thing. So there's no morality, with these guys. The police continue to suspect Spade, for killing somebody. And Spade confronts, after Cairo leaves, he confronts O'Shaughnessy and he says, tell me everything you know, because, like, I'm in deep doo-doo with the police. They think I killed somebody. And, if you think I'm going to help you, even in exchange for whatever I'm getting, you got to tell me the truth. I got to know what's going on. Okay, so then she admits, she says, okay, well, I've been hired to retrieve an elusive bird, and Thursby and I were working together to get it. But Thursby betrayed me at some point, and, she went solo. She admits to knowing where the bird was and that she had access to it. So if he wants to get to the bird, she's the one. She knows where it is. They don't. The other guys don't know. All she wants at this point is to give the bird now to the opposing team, to Cairo's team, because she doesn't want it anymore. This bird has been nothing but trouble. She's actually afraid at this stage because she knows they play a really mean game. People are dying, right? So she wants out. But since she's the only one who knows where the bird is, she's going to make a profit on the deal, right? So she'll be like, I know where it is. I'm the only one who can deliver it to any of you. And I'm willing to sell it to you because I just went out of this game. That scene ends. Spade is on the street. He sees the gunsil tailing him again. And he confronts the gunsil and says, I got a message for your boss. See, I got a message for your boss. Tell him I want to talk to him. So it cuts back into a scene where O'Shaughnessy and Spade are together, and it's a tender moment between them, and there's a certain amount of intimacy, and so you can kind of tell now that they're an item with one another, and it seems as though there's some genuine affection between them. Neither one of them appear to be pretending that they have a relationship. She now knows that the other team is aware of her and that she actually has the thing. So now she's in more danger than anybody because she's the only one who knows where the thing is. So she's so afraid she can't go. There's no hotel room that she'll be safe in. So Spade arranges for her to go home with his secretary. They'd never look there, he thinks. And so she goes and spends, you know, to her new location is with the secretary. I'm sorry about this. I just don't want to miss a detail. I wrote it all down. The fat man in the meanwhile, Gutman is his name, but they call him the fat man. So the gunsil tells the fat man Spade's message, and so the fat man gets in touch with Spade, because now they all know that they're all into it, deep into their eyeballs, and they all want an exchange of information and in exchange for something else, right? So the fat man confirms the story about the Falcon, and we kind of figure out that the fat man uses the gunsil in exchange for, as I described earlier, you know, like if you have to use sex to get around something, that's what the gunsils are for. If the woman can't entice somebody, right? Maybe the man could. So that's they have their they both camps have a willingness, you know, to put up for sex, right? And so the gunsil is who the fat man. It's the fat man's boy toy, right? It's his boy toy, but he also uses him to get what he wants. You know, he's a thug. He walks around. He tails people, and if somebody that they need help from happens to be of his persuasion, he goes for it. And now we also learn that Cairo has joined forces with the fat man and the gunsil. So this is a little unbeknownst to Spade. So now Cairo is not like a free agent. He was a free agent who knew about both camps. I probably didn't make that clear earlier. But, he really does end up siding with the fat man. So I kind of put him with the fat man's camp. The fat man tells Spade that everything he needs to know about the Falcon, and offers him even more money than either O'Shaughnessy or Cairo did. He suggests that you can get upwards of $250,000. This thing's worth at least $1 million. And because they realize that O'Shaughnessy is the only one who knows how to get the Falcon, he wants to deal with Spade, though, because he trusts Spade more than he trusts O'Shaughnessy. So he uses Spade as his liaison to O'Shaughnessy. We learn that Gutman has been in pursuit of this Falcon for 17 years. And, it's been his obsession for 17 years to track this thing down. So he wants it bad, right? For some reason, the fat man drugs Spade. He, the gunsil, and Cairo, who now we know absolutely are working together, leave the apartment, and they leave Spade incapacitated, and they take off. They want him incapacitated because they know where the Falcon is. All right, they figured it out, and they have to drug him to get him out of the way, because they don't want him tailing them or anything like that. So they drug him, and they take off to get this thing because they think they know where it is. Sam wakes up, figures that the Falcon arrived. He sees like a newspaper clipping that says that the Falcon, that the ship, that he puts two and two together himself, and he realizes it came over on a ship, and that they went to see the ship. So he goes to the ship, to see, who he can find. He can't find any of them there. So he figures out that Gutman, O'Shaughnessy, Cairo, the gunsil, he all knows that they've gone to get this thing, and he's kind of out of the loop. He returns to his office, thinking that he's behind the curve, when a mysterious man arrives in his office with a package. This is where Walter Houston makes his cameo appearance. It turns out that it's the elusive Falcon. So Walter Houston's character doesn't even have a name, but he just, oh yeah, his name is Captain Jacoby, I think, or Jacoby, or Captain Jacoby. He is like the captain of the ship. We learned this a little bit later, but that's who he is. And he's got this package, and he apparently had been shot up pretty good. And it's with his last dying steps and words that he delivers this Falcon to Sam Spade. And once he delivers the Falcon to the person that he needs to give it to, he collapses and dies. So somebody found the Falcon, got their hands on the Falcon, and arranged for it to be sent to Sam Spade's office. So at this stage, we're guessing, was it O'Shaughnessy who figured it out? Who did this? Or did the fat man get it and, send it, arrange for the guy to arrive? But somebody didn't want him to go and deliver it. And so somebody shot him, But apparently it turns out, because a couple seconds later, O'Shaughnessy calls screaming. And so we know that she's the one who, we figure it out, I guess between this scene and the next scene, he figures out that she sent the bird, she got her hands on it, and she arranged for it to go to his office. So she trusts him, and she completely trusts him. So he has his secretary deal with the body and call the police and have them come and, take the body away. And in the meanwhile, he tells her, don't mention anything about the Maltese Falcon. Just say everything that happened, but don't say there was an object involved. So he picks up the bird, goes to, I think, a bus station, gets a locker at the bus station, puts the thing in it, like this huge, humongous thing could ever fit into like a little slot of a butt. Well, I guess it could. So he puts this thing in a locker at the bus station. Gutman and Cairo and I don't know what the gunsil's name is, so I'm sorry. I keep calling him a gunsil. So I guess that could be offensive, and I do apologize. I just don't know what else to call him. Let's call him the trailer, because he trailed Spade. Okay, so Gutman, Cairo, and the trailer all figure out that O'Shaughnessy tricked them. Becomes very evident, and they know that somehow they knew that she gave the Falcon to the captain, so they know that he has it. So they go to shoot him, and they shoot him up pretty good, but he still had the stamina to get to Spade and deliver the thing. Spade learns through listening that now all of them are in his apartment. Okay, every one of them, both camps are in his apartment, and they're having like a big kumbaya, negotiations about you have the bird, we want the bird, and O'Shaughnessy and Spade are happy to give the bird, but they want money in exchange for it, but they don't want the bird, but they are happy to give it to them, but they're all together because they have to negotiate this big deal. So Spade learns through listening that Thursby, quite accidentally, Gutman spills the beans that Thursby had been loyal to O'Shaughnessy. He doesn't know what she told Spade about. So he doesn't know that he's slipping something. But Gutman says, well, we tracked it down to Thursby, and we knew that Thursby knew that she knew where the thing was, but he wouldn't talk because he was so loyal to her that we couldn't get him to talk. Okay? So there's a second where the camera focuses on Spade, because he has a moment, if you catch it, he's like, that's not what she told me. But it's so quick and so brief, and it happens so fast, you might not catch it. In fact, I probably didn't catch it until I watched the movie a couple of times. So he learns now that she had lied to him about that. She said that Thursby betrayed her. And as it turns out, she betrayed Thursby. So now he knows that she hasn't been truthful to him. She hasn't been honest with him. and he thought that he was a confidant of hers, but, he learns better now. He learns differently. And they spend the whole night together, waiting for the bus station to open and for the secretary to go get the key and get the thing and bring it to them. So they spend the whole night together, all of these people. And they kind of have an unholy alliance because they need a fall guy. Somebody has to take the fall for this. And, Spade is worried that the police are going to pin him because they already think he killed his partner. Excuse me. They already think he killed Thursby because he killed his partner. But they also think that he could have killed his partner because maybe he killed his partner to get him out of the way so he could run off with his wife. So the cops think that, Spade is involved to some degree. They don't know who he killed, but they think he probably killed at least one of those fellas, right? So they have an unholy alliance this evening until the bus depot opens and Spade's secretary can retrieve the Falcon. And in the course of the evening, as I mentioned, Gutman slips a detail that makes Spade realize that O'Shaughnessy is probably the one who killed his partner. And he figured that out. He doesn't say so until later, but I think it's at that moment, like I mentioned with the look, in the pause, that he figures that out. The Falcon finally arrives, and they all discover to their horror that it's a fake. It's not the real Falcon. He goes to scrape off the enamel that is supposedly has covered jewels because this thing was encrusted. The statuette was encrusted with jewels, and the black surface is just some kind of covering that's painted or glossed over it or somehow put all over it. But if you crack this shell, when you get through the shell, you'll get to the jewels. So they are like scraping at it and trying to get to the jewels, and they realize that this is a fake. This isn't it. So the men leave. They say, okay, it's a fake. They, make their deal. Like Spade says, well, I want something for my trouble. I spent all this time, so they, negotiate terms and they take off. They also agreed that the tailor was going to be their fall guy. They decided he would be perfect. He at least killed Thursby. So let him take the rap for killing the other guy as well. So the group leaves Spade, and they leave O'Shaughnessy with Spade. The group of men decide they're going to work together. Actually Cairo and the fat man agree to work together because the tailor realized that he was going to be the scapegoat. He just took off. So he takes off. But we understand that Cairo and the fat man are joining forces, and they're going to go back to Istanbul, and they're going to try to get this thing. They leave. Sam picks up the phone and calls the cops and says, you need to find these three men. They're all involved. They're all the ones involved in the murder of Thursby and, the fire at the boat dock and, blah, 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 blah. So he hangs up the phone, and then he confronts O'Shaughnessy and he says, listen, woman, I know that you killed my partner. And although I didn't love my partner and I did things against my partner, you still killed my partner. And now I know that you killed my partner. You always have something on me. So maybe I love you. Maybe you love me. But I'll never know if I can trust you. Because, I know you lied to me. He didn't say that, but that's it, Because I know that you didn't tell me the truth. You didn't come clean. And so I don't know moving forward if I can trust you. I don't know if because I know that you killed my partner, and even though I maybe don't care that you did, but it's something that you'll always have on me. And so if you decide you're tired of this relationship and you want out, you got something on me, So I can't let you get away with it. And here's the question that I have for Tiero. See, I told you, I had to tell you the whole story because the question happens at the very end. O'Shaughnessy can't believe that he's going to hand her over to the police. He can't believe it. She can't believe it. She's like, we're in love. What are you doing? Like, how could you turn me in? We're in love, you know? I mean, come on, you know, this is insane. You didn't even like your partner, you know? And that's when he explains to her, well, but I'll never know if you'll like betray me again. You know, like that finding out that she lied to him was the kiss of death in that relationship, you know? And I think, you know, I don't know if we are to believe that he was always on the up and up and that he would have fallen for her had he not figured out that she killed his partner. And, you know, he just felt that was indecent and, you know, he couldn't, you know, he had to, you know, she couldn't get away with murder, in other words. So he had a decent shred of bone in his body. And, you know, there's alcohol, you know, maybe I love you, maybe you love me, maybe that's all true. But, you know, as I mentioned, you know, you can't get away with murder, you know. So she is just devastated. She never saw that coming. So my question is, could O'Shaughnessy have been trusted moving forward? It seems like they were genuinely in love. It seemed like if he hadn't have found that aspect out, had the men gone on their merry way, and had she not killed his partner, when the whole case was finished, it seems like they probably would have been an item, you know? But because this happened, no, they no longer could have been. So I want to know, moving forward, could she have been trusted? You know, was she sincerely and genuinely in love with him? And had he never figured it out, she would have kept it a secret, absolutely. She never would have told him. But had he not figured that out, there was nothing that, you know, would have interfered with their love, because if she didn't know he knew, there was nothing to hide. So she had all thoughts believing that they were going to be an item. She didn't know he figured it out. So I don't know. I think there was genuine love, and I think she really loved him, and I think she expected him. This is my thought. I think she definitely, I think anybody's thought who sees the movie, I think she expected him to overlook all that because they're in love. My God, we're in love. But he's like, well, maybe we are, maybe we're not. I don't know, baby. You lied to me already, so I'm just saying. So my question, you know, is, was she really in love, and could she have been trusted, even knowing that he knew the truth? Could she have been trusted moving forward, or what their future would have been like? I mean, he very easily could have pretended he didn't know. She didn't know. He figured it out, you know? So he could have kept quiet about it. If he loved her, he could have kept quiet about it. And she never would have been able to blackmail him because she would have assumed he didn't figure it out. But because he figured it out, he had to take a stand and he had to turn her in. But anyway, that's my question. So let me flip the camera 45 minutes in, and I still haven't laid the cards. I hope you think it was worth it. Hold on. Alrighty, so just to shuffle a few cards. You know the question. Death, 10 batons, 2 batons. So we have 13, 23, 25, minus 22 is the Empress. Okay, well, this is very interesting. I'm not sure I understand it fully at this stage, so I may have to pause the camera and think about it for a little bit. But the one thing I'm struck by immediately is, you know, the spread being encapped by Death and the Empress. Clearly, the Empress is a woman who has the upper hand, you know? So I think it tells us that she definitely has the upper hand, you know? So she has some power that, over him. So his assessment of her was correct. Now, this death card appears first. It doesn't appear at the end. So it doesn't look like, to me, it means like she's going to lead to his death or lead to his ruin. It starts that way. So this could be referencing the trail of mayhem and murder, that she has put in place, I mean, she was involved in all of it. And so that's the history, right? So I think I'm not, it would be so much more convenient if these two cards were in this position, because it would suggest to me that he was open to the idea, but then put it all together and then put barriers up and that's, he shut it down, right? But that's not how it occurs. It occurs like death and mayhem. He puts boundaries up, but then there's a weakness. Oh, maybe the weakness is her. This is the two of them. Okay, I get it. So what went before, right, has him closed. I'm closed to this. I'm closed to this whole thing, right? But she, the woman who's in charge, who is in a position of controlling everything, she's open. She's open to the risk. Wow. So does that mean she could have been trusted? Could she have been trusted? You know how he feels. It's all too much for him. He's out of the game. But she's not nearly as guarded. And she's the one who holds all the cards. So maybe, and she's willing to go through with it. Wow, I didn't see that coming. I really didn't see that coming. Because, part of me gets all his logic. And, if you kept your mouth, because I felt like if you kept your mouth shut, let me flip the camera. I figured that if Spade has kept his mouth shut, he could have had his cake and eat it too, But she, it seems like, even knowing that he knew, she might not have been a threat to him. So, I was thinking, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what to think. There's some days I see the movie and I think that she could have been trusted and that she was in love with him and, she wouldn't have turned him in. But then there are other days that say, don't be so naive. She would have turned him in, or she would have, blackmailed him for the rest of his life if something didn't go right with them, But I never really saw, wow, I'm really, really rather surprised to see that the suggestion here is that he closed the deal with her, but that she, who had all the power and she could have done more harm, she was open. She was much less guarded. So isn't that interesting? I'd do another reading for something else, but this is already at 50 minutes. And for those of you who stayed till the end, thank you so much. I hope, please let me know if you did and if you enjoyed this, because I have a million of these I could do. But you may have to endure history on the movie, or, the plot of the film too, With Casablanca, I only told you a little bit of the story. I didn't get because the part with pertaining to the question that I had was within the first few minutes of the film. It was established immediately, so I didn't have to tell you the whole story. But the reason I had to go through the whole thing with the story is because you had to know the story to know at the end. Because the question came at the end, and you had to know the story to understand the question. So I appreciate it that if you hung in there, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you really hated it, please let me know that too, because if too many people hate it, I'm going to have to not do it as often, But if most of you seem to like it, I'll keep doing them. I won't do them exclusively, but I'll throw them into my regular repertoire, of videos. So until next time, friends, peace, stay well, be kind, and do no harm.